Right. Perfect. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jenifer Sarver, and I am the board chair of the Women's Public Leadership Network. And I am so excited to have this conversation today and welcome June Cutter. Hi, June. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here for your first live chat.
Yes, well, we're getting all our technology sorted out. So thank you everyone for bearing with us. We're a few minutes after the start time, but we certainly appreciate everybody joining us for this conversation. Let me just tell you a little bit about the Women's Public Leadership Network. We are a group of women that are committed to getting more women in public office, either through board appointments or commissions or running for office at all levels. We're bipartisan, but we believe that there is a gap on the right. We had a lot of success with women running for office in 2018, but the gains were pretty lopsided. There's far more Democratic women elected than conservative Republican women. And so we're looking at ways in which we can encourage women on the right to join their sisters on the left and get involved in public office. And so we're doing these Facebook Live conversations as a way to begin the conversation and let the public know what we're doing. And we're so delighted to have June Cutter with us. She is currently a candidate for the California Assembly. And we're going to talk to June about what it's like to campaign, and especially what it's like to campaign right now in the midst of a pandemic. So June, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm really excited to talk about the campaign and how we've pivoted, but also about getting more women elected into office or appointed to government positions, because I think that's so important.
Absolutely. Well, I want to start with a fun question. I want you to tell our audience what a bunco game had to do with you running for state assembly.
Well, so the ladies in my neighborhood had a bunco group, and I hosted one day, and as fate would have it, a fundraiser from the political world here in San Diego lived in our neighborhood, and she's actually one of my best friends now. But she walked in, we started talking about politics, and the next thing you know, I was a board member of the California Women's Leadership Association, and then PAC chair, and now I'm running for office.
I love that story because I think, women are involved in so many different areas of our communities and with our families and our churches and our neighborhoods and our schools. And I don't think a lot of people really see themselves as potential candidates for public office. But I think that those community groups are a great place to start. I also know you're really involved in the PTA. So tell us a little bit about your involvement with the PTA and how you think that might be even a more challenging job than running for office.
Well, I never thought that I would be a candidate for office, so I fit right into that description you said, and I never thought I would be PTA president at our local elementary school, but whenever there is a gap, I've always stepped in to fill it, and that's kind of how things happened. So been doing all of these volunteer activities at school and found myself in a leadership role. And I will tell you that being PTA president and juggling the needs of an elementary school that has 1,200 students is a lot harder than running for state office.
Yeah, well, and you wear a lot of hats. So you are an attorney, you're a former military spouse, you're an entrepreneur, and of course, you're a mom. So let's talk a little bit about being a mom and how that's on the campaign trail. Talk about how your kids are involved in your campaign. So I think that's one of the things that you hear and read in the literature is that women are a little bit reticent to get involved in a campaign because they don't want to put their families under a microscope. And so that's certainly a consideration that goes into deciding whether to run. But tell us how you walk through that decision process and how your family is a part of your campaign today.
Well, it's funny. I decided to run for office over a glass of Prosecco at my friend's house on a Saturday night. So the next day I told my family I was running for state assembly, and my husband was shocked because it's something we had never even talked about. He knew that I was a supporter of many candidates. I don't think he ever imagined that I would be a candidate myself. My kids have always been very aware of the political process. We don't shelter our kids from that at all, but I think they find it exciting. My daughter is 10 years old. Her favorite thing to do is to play iCivics online. So she loves to run for president in her game. And she knocked on doors with me when we could knock on doors. She went to events with me as my helper. She calls herself the clipboard person. So getting my kids involved in the campaign, being cognizant of the fact that it does expose them to things that you might not typically expose your kids to, and putting them in the public eye and everyone knowing who they are. That's, difficult at times, but we've been able to strike a good balance, and they, I think, are really, enlightened by the process, and they benefit from seeing the process and having their mom run for office.
What a better civics lesson could they be learning? I mean, that's probably the height of civics class, is campaigning with mom, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And the greatest part has also been that they go into the classrooms, and their teachers have all been very supportive of my race, and the teachers let them share what they did and what their mom's running for, and it's giving their whole classroom a civics lesson also.
I think that's awesome. I mean, one of the things that strikes me as I kind of look at your campaign from afar is that it has a very different physical look and feel. So your colors are pretty much hot pink and blue. They're not red and blue like most campaigns are.
Right.
It doesn't visibly say Republican or Democrat on your signs. And your slogan is for people, not politics. I want you to talk a little bit about that branding and why that's important for you not to be so partisan and not to be so focused on the politics of it all, and to look a little bit different than everybody else.
Well, a lot of people have commented, I can't tell what you are. I don't know if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I don't understand why your website doesn't look like a typical politician's website. And even my consultants, when we first went with the design, they're men, and they said, that's a lot of pink. And I wanted to make sure that it had a feminine feel to it. I wanted to make it clear that I am the every mom in my district. It's not about partisan politics. It's about the person who's going to represent the community, roll their sleeves up, and work hard to make sure that every single person is taken care of. I wanted that message to come through more than what might be your typical partisan talking point.
You mentioned kind of appealing to the every mom in your district. And I know that the Moms for June have been very popular. Can you tell us a little bit about that group and what they've done to support you?
Right. So to start, I should say my district is in suburban San Diego. We are the suburban heart of San Diego, and it might not work everywhere, but almost all the women in my district are moms or grandmoms or starting to build their families. So it was important to me to be able to reach out to the vast majority of women in my district. And I thought that from personal experience, moms roll up their sleeves and get things done. And if someone's going to fix California, it's going to be a group of moms. So I created kind of this new movement of Moms for June. And we are moms who care about our kids' education, their economic stability, what their future is going to look like, not partisan at all. The Moms for June range from the far left to the far right, and we are all just working together for the common goal. They are my volunteers. They're the stars in my commercials. They come out and rally for all the events. They're bundlers. They do everything, and the power that they have been able to harness is amazing.
One of the things that you've mentioned a couple of times is education, and that is a really important part of your platform. And I noticed in reading the San Diego Union Tribune's endorsement of you that they talked about your kind of position on education as important. I was struck by the fact that they endorsed you, frankly.
Me too.
Over the incumbent who've been there for a long time. Now he has switched parties, which may be part of the reason why they chose not to endorse him. But tell us a little bit about that process, how you were endorsed and how you're using that endorsement in your campaign.
Well, I was shocked that I was outright endorsed over my opponent, and for an issue that I am very passionate about. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. They're in the public school system. Because I've volunteered so much, I understand the challenges that public school administrators and teachers face, as well as students. Last year, I spent a lot of time volunteering at underserved schools in San Diego as well, helping them get school supplies and backpacks through our mayor's nonprofit, One San Diego. And to be a mom and have firsthand knowledge of how the system is working for our kids or failing our kids, I think gives me a very unique perspective on education. I also feel like the failures of our K through 12 education system here in California, we're 47th out of 50 states, which is shocking. And I think that fixing our K through 12 education system will have a positive trickle effect to more of the socioeconomic issues that people talk about.
Yeah, so one of the things that you're adding to your plate, like a lot of people right now, is being a homeschool mom, because everybody is locked in their houses for the most part. So talk a little bit about how this pandemic has changed your campaign and what digital tools you're using to get out and visit with voters.
Right. So I think that my campaign was more digital to begin with than a lot of traditional campaigns, even here in California. And I feel like maybe that gave me a bit of a head start when we were locked down with the stay-at-home order. Well, first to start, mom school is a little crazy, a little tough. And I'm sure that everyone out there across the country is feeling the challenges of having their kids at home. My 10-year-old's pretty self-sufficient, but my 7-year-old still needs a lot of hand-holding. So trying to run a business, practice law, have a campaign, still trying to get momentum, and homeschooling kids, cooking, cleaning, all of that all day long. It's like constantly switching hats and constantly switching gears. And it's been a challenge, but also really nice to be able to see my kids grow and see what they're actually learning and be able to put my own spin on things, like a little extra civics lesson here and there. But with the campaign, we've had no choice but to go completely digital. You can't have fundraising events, cocktail parties, coffees, meet and greets. None of that is possible. So just trying to engage voters on social media and through creative email campaigns and videos and everything that we can that's not person-to-person contact.
Yeah, I noticed that Instagram is a place where you like to spend time, and I saw you've been doing some great chats just with one of the local mayors a couple of days ago. How are you getting these elected officials to join you on an Instagram live chat, and what's that process been like?
Well, I have been very fortunate to have the support of a lot of elected officials and community leaders from both sides of the aisle, and being able to have that ongoing support and relationship with them where I can pick up the phone and ask them to join me on a live chat on Instagram. So I've been really fortunate enough to I started with my fellow candidates, and then I moved to elected officials. Next week, I will be doing live chats with business leaders in the restaurant industry and also charter school advocates. So we'll be kind of shifting gears from politics to industry and hopefully continuing the live chat series until the stay-at-home order is lifted, whenever that might be. But I'm very fortunate to have such tremendous support.
Well, and I think it's just a great way to kind of show your leadership already. One of the things that candidates have to do during this time is to totally throw out the playbook of how campaigns are usually run and show how they are already a leader. So you're showing resources, you're having important conversations. You're also doing things like food drives. Will you tell us a little bit about some of those food drives you've done in the district?
Well, thank you for the compliments. I appreciate it. So I think it's something that I probably would have done just as someone who's active in the community anyway, but now as a candidate, everything gets documented. But we have been doing community grocery and supply drives for local low-income seniors.
Mm-hmm.
The way that our community is set up, there are low-income housing units kind of all spread around, and several of those are dedicated to senior citizens. And immediately when COVID-19 put us at a stay-at-home order, and I realized that senior communities were at risk, I thought, well, someone needs to go and do their grocery shopping. Someone needs to help these seniors who may not have the support of children nearby or, financial resources that other people might have. And so I contacted them, and they said, and then one of the office ladies in the community building said that they would like us to help with a food drive. And so I did one, and then I did two, and then we just finished our 5th one in 8 weeks. Trunk loads of groceries and supplies, things that they need, with safe and secure delivery straight to their community.
I think that's so important. I've got to say that's one of the things I've been enjoying is serving people in my community. I'm a doer. I like to get out. I like to get things done. And so helping with food pantries and those sort of things is a great way people can serve right now. So public service message, wherever you are listening to this, your local food bank needs you. They need your resources and they need your time. So make sure you're looking at them as a place to volunteer and serve. So June, we have a number of good questions coming in on Facebook. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions from the audience. The first one is, what's the best way moms can support other moms running for office during this COVID time?
Well, I think that it's so important to let the mom candidates know that you're out there willing to support them. It might look different. It might not be knocking on doors. It might not be hosting coffees, but to let them know that you're there to be a social media warrior, to share the great things about the candidate, there to address envelopes and postcards when those are ready to go out, available for text campaigns. Peer-to-peer texting, I think, is going to be so important in this election year. And also to phone bank. The first time I did a phone bank for a candidate, I was nervous, hesitant, but once you get one call session under your belt, it is easy peasy and one of the greatest things that you can do to help out a candidate.
Yeah, I think people have a little bit more time on their hands in some cases, and calling and texting from home is a great way to support campaigns. And like you said, that peer-to-peer relationship is so important. And we have another question that's kind of related to that. What are other groups besides moms have been supporting you the most? And where's the most kind of shocking support and momentum? Have there been surprises for you, either good or bad, from people that have supported you?
Oh, well, I've had so many great, wonderful surprises. As a center-right candidate, you don't necessarily get support from education or teachers, but I have Teachers for June, which has been amazing. I think it's because I have been able to set aside those partisan politics and just talk to them about what I think is important and how I think that we can help them do their job better and be able to get on the same plane with priorities. So getting teacher support has been amazing. And it might not be organized teacher groups, but individual teachers in the district who live here, who work here, who teach here, have been tremendously supportive of my campaign. And I cannot say enough about how much I appreciate them. And other than moms, I have dads who come out and support as well, and young people. I've had a lot of support from young Republicans and also college students and all of those volunteer groups who, have been volunteering for a while. It's our traditional base, but they're really excited about a campaign that's digital, that's about social media, that is young and fresh and new. I'm not that young, but I guess I'm younger than your usual candidate.
State of mind, June. Age is the state of mind.
It's a state of mind that I'm 15. No, it really is about being able to connect with that younger voter base, and I've been really fortunate to do that.
Let me ask you another question that's coming off of Facebook that's kind of irrelevant to this conversation. What is the most effective type of outreach based on your experience? Social media, phone calls, email, or something else? And are people paying more or less attention since COVID? Have you been able to kind of gauge that?
Well, I think that my most effective communication tool before COVID was probably knocking on doors and just getting out there and not being shy to meet people who may not have heard of you and who may not typically vote, or just, handshakes, meeting people, but that is now out the window. During the era of COVID, I think social media has definitely been the number one way to reach people. And unfortunately, I think that there's a lot less interest in races. In California, we just finished our primary on March 3rd, and then we were locked down a couple weeks later. So it was very strange timing. People had kind of been burnt out by the political process and were probably going to start paying less attention for a couple of months anyway. And now that we are in this stay-at-home order, people's attention are focused on other things, such as keeping the little humans alive at home, and the economy, and other very important issues. But politics has been kind of, pushed down on the priority list. With that said, we had a special election yesterday, and from what we've seen in the numbers so far, the turnout has been great. In comparison to other years where there's been a special election. So maybe things are picking up. Maybe people will start getting more interested. We're less than 6 months until the general. So maybe it's time.
Well, and I would say this pandemic certainly shows how important leadership is. And people are paying attention to their leaders at the local level, the state level, and the federal level, and gauging their response and how do they deal in times of crisis. And to me, leadership really either shines or falls flat during a crisis. And so maybe people are looking at this pandemic and looking at their leaders' responses and making different decisions politically based on those responses. And so the challenge and the opportunity for you as a candidate is to tell that story of how you would either do things differently, or you would stay the course, or how you would have responded. And so I think it's important to continue to be supportive in our communities and to showcase people what we're doing to serve others, like those seniors, but then also kind of offer a different vision if you think that that's what is necessary for your campaign.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. I have one more question I want to ask from Facebook that is relevant for us here. But what advice would you give women running in other states to gain the same kind of support and momentum that you have? What tools have you leveraged that you would share with other people in other states running for races at all levels?
Well, I think that you need to be strategic about gaining the right support. Don't be afraid to ask. And for me, one of the greatest things was having other women in government and politics lift me up and support me. Women supporting women is so vital. I think when I first came onto the scene, a complete newcomer, the men were a little hesitant, like, we've never seen her before, never heard her name. She wants to run for a statewide office. This is strange. Whereas all the women in leadership rolled up their sleeves, gave the early endorsements, and really pushed me forward to a place where you're legitimized as a candidate. You see other people supporting, you want to see what this is all about, you like what you hear, and you jump on board. But not being afraid to go out and seek the support of other leaders, other women in office, and ask for that helping hand and say, this is why I'm running, this is what my vision is, can you please support me? I think it's hard to take that leap, but once you do, it makes all the difference.
Well, I think that's a really great way to kind of end our conversation today. And I want to just thank you, June, for joining us and telling us about your campaign and giving people some insights into how to manage a campaign during this time. We're so excited that you're part of our Women's Public Leadership Network. And I just want to remind people that WPLN is really looking at supporting groups across the country that are encouraging women to get involved in politics. We believe that we need more diverse voices leading at all levels of government. And June is a perfect testament to somebody who didn't think she was going to run for political office, but she's been serving her community. So you might be on the PTA today, not realizing that you're part of a pipeline. Wherever you are in this country, wherever you are serving, there's a place for you in leadership. And we want to provide you with the skills and the tools and the network to run for office or be prepared for that board or commission appointment. So